Good evening and welcome to our monthly online series, Words for Palestine. My name is Riwa Zinati, Curator of Public Programming at the Arab American National Museum in Dearborn, the first and only museum of its kind in the US devoted to recording the Arab American experience. This year, we as a museum celebrate our 20th anniversary. I insist on saying celebrating because, despite the unspeakable horrors and genocide, we celebrate in the conviction that our stories and memories and joy will persist and resist in the face of lunacy and fiction and theft. And as we continue to center our collective liberation, we continue to uplift artists whose work is rooted in that core belief. Before we begin, I'd like to ground us with an acknowledgement that the Arab American National Museum is housed on the ancestral land of the Anishinaabe peoples. We respectfully recognize the Three Fires Confederacy, Kickapoo, Miami, and Wyandot nations, who have stewarded this land throughout the generations, the land that we call home and on which we create art. We acknowledge that we are on occupied land and affirm that while we cannot change history, we can commit to working for justice. As we reflect on the land and the histories of those who have come before us, we remember our own homelands and our home histories. We remember that words matter, and those who continue to erase us know this all too well, which is why they try to own the story, however fictional or distorted it may be, which is why we will never stop talking and writing to and about Palestine, which is why Words for Palestine exists, to keep truth and justice at the forefront, and to bridge solidarity with our families in Palestine and raise funds for PCRF Palestine Legal, which is dedicated to protecting the civil and constitutional rights of anyone who speaks out for Palestinian liberation in the United States. So please feel free to donate to one or both of these necessary organizations. You'll find the QR codes up in the corner of this screen. Before I introduce our first reader, I'd like to thank our partners, Mizna Rawi, Palestine Rights, Al Nedwa Free Thinking Society, and Sukoon, as well as the four artists whom you'll hear from tonight. I'd also like to invite you, the audience, to drop any questions that you would like to ask the readers in the chat so that we can share them at the end of the reading. Without further ado, I'd like to start by introducing our first reader, A.D. Lauren-Abunassar. A.D. Lauren-Abunassar, hey, is a Palestinian-American writer, poet, and journalist. Her work has appeared in poetry, narrative, rattle, boulevard, and elsewhere. Her first book, Coriolis, was winner of the 2023 Ital Adnan Poetry Prize. She's a 2025 NEA Fellow in Poetry. Welcome, Lauren.
Thank you very much, Riwa. Thank you, everyone, for being here. It's very comforting, I think, right now to be in community and to read alongside so many writers and humans that I respect and look up to so much. So it's very humbling. I'm just going to read a couple of poems from my book and then also a couple of newer pieces that I've been working on. I think the only context that I'll give for them is to just say that I think a lot of my writing right now and in the past has been interested in archive, inheritance, storytelling as a form of record keeping, and also how we piece together an understanding of home and how we make home, especially as we're living in diasporic communities. And then lately, of course, the ongoing genocide. I've been thinking a lot about what it means to write at the intersection of archive and erasure, existence and resistance, and then also catastrophe and love. So everything I'm going to read is sort of revolving around those questions, which are enduring and lifelong for me. And I'll also just say one quote that I keep coming back to lately and that's really shaping the project I'm working on right now from Ital Adnan's Surge. We come to transmit the shimmering from which we came to name it. So that's definitely a sort of guiding principle for me as I write. Okay, so this first poem is from my book, Coriolis, and this poem is called Post-Immigration Pastoral. Remember the one that you loved for, giving away all their secrets, coarse gray ash on a coarse green field, our father skinning a goat or pretending to, forgetting that love takes change. Sometimes I want to say no, I'm not finished. As a matter of fact, fact has no matter or truth. Every dream is a little bit jealous of dying. Every death is a little relieved. Remember the two gray trees where the neighbor hung himself in bundles of wire, and our father was there to untether him? For years I dreamt only of hands, the trees stripped bare like matchsticks, coarse dead body on a coarse live body, shouldering him to the grass. If you could take away the real things, the pollen sticking to our shirts, the poplar too pretty to fit, the lemons wanting nothing of growing, I wonder if our father would turn to a dream. I wonder who he loved for and left for, those widening figs in his hard polished eyes. Do you remember asking why he didn't cry then? Do you remember his steady hands, how badly we wanted to love in him some unliftable part of ourselves? These days I ask questions badly. These days I dream of moving away. I'm learning that love is an act of mercy. Love is an act of sacrifice. Our father untangling a jacket from a branch. And this next poem, this is another father poem, but it's one I wrote somewhat recently, a couple of months ago. A lot of what I've been writing is dealing with inherited family stories and trying to piece together meaning, I think, with the stories that I'm given from family and remembering their history and using that to kind of assemble some understanding of the present. But this poem is called What the Fish Say Over There. My godson wanted to go look at the fish, but I told him, today, beauty is canceled. We cried. I felt bad. I counted the unbeautiful like broken ribs, shrapnel on the olive tree, child-sized tourniquet, St. Porphyrius watching and weeping. My father phones to tell me they're down to vinegar. They pour into open wounds. His friend found some wild tomatoes, cooked them in the street for his children. Over there, it's a God-lent shovel, a murmur in water. The dark between angels is still time spent waiting for light. My father finds the photo albums to remember that once streets existed. My godson has not stopped describing his desire for fish. Their bodies are neon impossible. The water is full of his daydreams. I scavenge his tiny wants, and after I dream of the hospital, ice cream trucks filled with bodies. A friend dies on that blacktop like a fish. So few people will name him. I said, today I'm choosing the space between angels. There is nothing left to choose. I sew beauty between layers of skin. It seeps out without my noticing. When I see it, I get angry because how dare life go on? My godson phones to say the fish are possible. We are possible. The sky is full of broken windows, and so is the dream. My eye sees the way the past lurches forward, covering ground like we cover old scars. It says what the fish say. Witness me. Okay. And then I'll read. I've been working on a lot of poems about my teta, who died 2 years ago. And I'm writing a series about her. And this is, I think, one of the first poems that really made me start thinking about writing about her in depth, in a prolonged fashion. So this one is also from my book. This is called Field Guide as Sonnet. My grandmother splits plums by the river. Her thumbs are the thumbs of a god. They divide, they multiply, they extend. She chews a mint leaf down until it is her own green-colored spit. And when she smokes, the ash does not fall without her say-so. So, she is a study in force, how to channel the mighty in her own live hands. I told her once, I don't know how to not be shaped or how to move beyond this. She said, this is a question of life, like, get over it. Her mercy flows like a clumsy river. It moves mad, and it carries a hazard of surprises. She surprises me by saying, grief's no more than a postcard in lieu of a letter, a plum where a garden should be, a disappointment you pull from the root. Look, the onward's in the looking, she says, to the history of other derailments and the women who tendered their manner of moving on. She is a woman who knows pain is no more than a wager on survivability. She dreams in the language of history. When she eats, she keeps one hand open. When she prays, she requires no answers. Still, when she sleeps, she whispers what I whisper. I want something for keeps. Sorry, sirens going by. Yeah, the next one I'm going to read, I've been working on a new project right now that traces my family's immigration story from Palestine. And I've been fascinated with the idea of dreaming lately, and also the idea of horses, which is just an image I kind of keep coming back to and putting the two in conversation with one another. So the project I'm working on, the tentative title for it is called In Dreams I Am Always a Horse. And I have several poems that are kind of taking that title, and they're very different poems formally. But this is one of the first ones that I wrote. This is a few months old, so it's somewhat new. In dreams, I am always a horse. For miles everywhere, flatlands, trembling with wind's work, careless and indiscriminate. The fuel gauge is needling closer and closer, and I'm taking a chance with my life, imagining the horizon line is the bone of your shoulder, reeling my reach like a fish. I wonder if this is how God works, in empty gas tanks and tentative brake lights, in roadway pleas to make it just a little further down the causeway, a sensation like reach without touch, touch without body, body with too many ways of loving another. I can't say how or why, but the road keeps happening, slackening each want that tries to rise within me. It says something true. You can't ask for anything but life. Leave the rest up to time. See how it changes the horizon from a shoulder to a jaw. See how eventually it does touch you back, one way or another. This also must be the work of dreams, some pressure to return to the real, always lingering, even in the dark. Even in the dark, I question the light. If time will run out like this road, unaware of the tide's wild wager on the rock. Let us make ourselves heard into living. Let the water do its work on us, washing away the lost causes. This will all still be left, whether or not I make it home. A kind of comfort. Beauty is inevitable. Life is the thing between pauses. There are those who have come before me, and if I look hard enough at the mountain, I can believe some part of me will go on, even after this dark road runs out. I'm pretty time blind, so I'm trying to watch my timer here, but I think I have time for a couple more that I'll read from my book. This is another post-immigration pastoral poem that I got really obsessed when I was in grad school, actually, with writing ekphrastic poems, but I was interested in kind of thinking about language as a site of play, and what if I sort of like turned the ekphrastic poem into my own kind of like understanding of art. And so I got really obsessed also, I should say, with collecting like different paint swatches from the department store. I don't know if it was just me trying to get away from like Iowa winters, but I would just go and spend a lot of time collecting these paint swatches. And so I started writing ekphrastic poems about the paint swatches. And this is one of those. And it's called Ekphrastic Poem of a Scandinavia Blue Paint Swatch, or Things That Are Naked, or Post-Immigration Pastoral. We got off the ark. It was snowing. Naked as April. It was April. Wide awake at the summit, creating space, not easy. You lifted color, instruction, the wholeness of bread. My spine ran with heat like the L charging down its track. Heat can be blue, this blue even. Fruit flies gathered on the rim of the horse's blind eye. Do they mistake him for soft berries, blueberries? We blind eye to blue just because nothing is totally so. We break the grid by scrubbing. I scar long as a centipede and new skin grown over. Even castles have cobwebs, even arcs have escape routes. This blue is the blue of all the skin can hold. This snow is the snow of my last wildness, years after the lake was last useful to me. We are against the sky and its ways of describing, full up of great starts to other people's stories. Holding a hand close to my eye feels like being washed away, and there is no color in that. There are many colors in that. And the arc is not waiting anymore. This is that goneness in color. These are the hard sounds that fling forward. And truth is, this is how you become full. There are rules for midnight's colors, none of this softness, though another kind of softness, quiet as an errant prayer. I am mostly a part of my keeping, I say. Have we looked long enough to start walking, you ask. I run my hands down in the soft. I feel like a little spy pulling that last glimpse upward. This color becoming that color like the last good getaways. Truth is, my hands feel more held when the water runs through them. And I think I'll do two more short ones. This is called Supplies for a Quick Migration. Hard heart or heartable, water walking shoes, rope, river, raft, ladder and lasso, lychee your image of, lightable fires, your latchable dreams, some small magic, disposable magic, disclosed hunger, willingness to budge, to be desolate, to be made into, one heart of you here, one self completely indiscernible, a song to bruise you, a bush to flame, a metalled coal for any softness left, leavable histories, room for an urging hunger, whoever will follow, closable eyes to those who will not, a pencil or not, a knife or a knot, to grow, a small seed to sow into a slightly less small seed, an eye for exceptions, acceptance or lack of, a honed ear to places where home sounds sneak through. The thing is, your body becomes you. The thing is, there is no such place as the end of you. It's funny how much when you read over these, you realize the obsessions that kind of resurface over and over. I realize how much I write about water and fluidity and ice and winter. But this last one, which also has some of that in it, I took a really wonderful workshop once with Ilya Kaminsky, and I remember asking him, what do you do when you need to get new obsessions? Because I just keep writing about the same obsessions over and over. And he told me, you don't need to get new obsessions necessarily. You just need to find new ways of writing about the obsessions that you have. And so that was really helpful. And this poem came from that. And I think I'm thinking a lot now as well about grief. And this is a poem that's about grief. And it's called To Grief Without Asking. You indiscreet sun, you bird-like sun, you ellipsis, you waver, and I come to a gully, wait in the gully, go to the woman next door and ask for a disaster, to spread the disaster down my cold and waiting hands. I want to see it, feel its papery strength, paper that could hold a word, could hold this gold failure to breathe. The woman lost her husband, could not find him in the park, found him in the illness, a triptych of adenoma. You go where you want without asking, don't you, little sparrow? She could not heal me the way she needed healing. We were gone to the great out gulf, a dream, a god, dead as a goat in the valley from the virus of you. Worms scavenged him. We asked for a blanket to cover his tiny feet. I could name you like a gimmick. I could feed a piece of the storm back to you. We could praise you, graphite tenement, could redefine your arrows and gross curves. We went to the source, the woman and I, were ready to cure you. The goslings in the park were a languid few. Were you there? Did you go again without asking? We could not cure you, that is all there is to say. It's just anger, as in deep or caused by the self or another, as in to say the hardship was the folklore, it seemed to bloom a quiet engine. What is the difference in loneliness, the antonym for bison or an unspecific noun? You ephemeral feeling, will you stay this time? I do not want or need your pity. I will soldier you away, but come into the room, hand me a hurricane. I want to see what you're offering. And I think I'll leave it there, but thank you again so much.
Thank you so much, Lauren. That was beautiful. And I'm so relieved that we don't need new obsessions. We just have to write about them in new ways. Oh, so do we? I mean, will we even write about new obsessions? I think no, we will not. So thank you for that beautiful work, and I'm so intrigued and looking forward to your poems. In dreams, I'm always a horse, and I just remembered Mahmoud Darwish's poem, "Why Did You Leave the Horse Alone?" And I wonder if you'll also like find connections there, and if you're familiar with it as
Yes.
well.
Yeah, absolutely. I was actually thinking about I've been reading, I think the title is Take My Dead Horse and Slaughter It, or there's a Darwish poem about that, and I'm thinking so much about that, but I have one poem in the series in particular where I'm thinking constantly about like different ways that different writers and my ancestors have used horse images. So that those will definitely come in. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Lauren. I'd like to welcome our next reader, Sasha. Sasha Debevec-McKenney's poems have appeared in the New Yorker, the New York Review of Books, and the Yale Review. She was the 2020-2021 J.C. and Ruth Hall's Poetry Fellow at the University of Wisconsin and is currently a Creative Writing Fellow at Emory University. She was born in Hartford, Connecticut. Welcome, Sasha.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here to read some poems for everyone. What I want to say, yeah, I'm grateful to be here. I'm grateful to the other readers. My poems are kind of like jokes. So I thought maybe I could start with some poems by other poets that I love, and then transition into jokes, and then I'll read my one serious poem that I have. So I also want to say thank you to my friend Layla, who showed me this first poem I'm going to read. It's called Existence, and it's by Fudwa Tukan. Existence. In solitary life, I was a lost question. In the encompassing darkness, my answer was concealed. You are a bright new star, radiating light from the darkness of the unknown, revealed by fate. The other stars rotated around you once, twice, until it came to me, your unique radiance. Then the bleak blackness broke, and in the matching tremors of our two hands, I found my missing answer. Oh, you intimate yet distant, don't you remember the coalescence of your spirit in flames, of my universe with yours, of the two poets? Despite our great distance, existence unites us. Existence. I just love that poem. And then I'll read another poem by Ross Gay. It's called Sorrow Is Not My Name, and it's after Gwendolyn Brooks. This is just a poem that always comes back to me when I feel like shit. I don't know what else to say. So I thought maybe it would help somebody else too, if you haven't heard it before. So this is called Sorrow Is Not My Name. No matter the pull toward brink, no matter the florid, deep sleep awaits. There is a time for everything. Look, just this morning, a vulture nodded his red, grizzled head at me, and I looked at him, admiring the sickle of his beak. Then the wind kicked up, and after arranging that good suit of feathers, he up and took off, just like that. And to boot, there are on this planet alone something like 2 million naturally occurring sweet things, some with names so generous as to kick the steel from my knees. Agave, persimmon, stickball, the purple okra I bought for $2 at the market. Think of that. The long night, the skeleton in the mirror, the man behind me on the bus taking notes. Yeah. But look, my niece is running through a field calling my name. My neighbor sings like an angel, and at the end of my block is a basketball court. I remember. My color's green. I'm spring. Okay, now I'll read some of my poems. I just have a few. I write a lot about American history, and I've been living in Georgia for the last year and a half. So these poems are like just newer poems I've been writing as I've been going out to do things that I, to like do research and try and learn about where I live. So this is called Hurricane Shoals, and this is about a Civil War reenactment that I saw. Okay, Hurricane Shoals. It was my first summer in Georgia, and the heat was like a war I couldn't admit to losing. It smelled like sweat and fried dough and horse shit and burning rubber when I opened my car door in the Hurricane Shoals parking lot. Almost every car but mine had a bumper sticker that said, "Don't tread on me." My bumper sticker said, "I brake for historical markers." And so I had, and was I scared? I checked in with myself as I walked toward the battlefield. I peeked into a few tents set with 1860s gear, the stuff I had always read about or seen fakes of in museums. This hardtack has been reproduced to show, no, I wasn't scared. When the reenactors had buttoned their blues and grays that morning, they had gone back in time. They had themselves become their ancestors, sick boys starving their way across the country on foot. This was only theater. Hurricane Shoals was the stage. I was only one person in an audience of UGA fans and Trump 2024 hats. This wasn't a place for shame. I tried not to feel it. Over the loudspeaker, the announcer asked us to prepare. The battle was about to begin. 2 rows of Confederates marched behind me, and a little girl nearby yelled out, "That's my dad." Someone else yelled, "Here come our boys," and everyone clapped. The little girl asked if her daddy would win, and her mom said no, but we should have. I wasn't shocked. I wasn't anything really, because all I could think about how badly I wanted to be smoking weed at that very moment, how nice it would have been to smoke weed in my car on the drive here. And if I was stoned, I wouldn't be so nervous, so alone. And was it too late? Had I already smoked so much weed that my brain would never go back to how it was before? The first cannon shot knocked leaves off the trees, shut me up. We were all crowded behind a white fence, watching as the Union stalked its way to the historic village, the men whipping their horses into a predetermined dance. The Yankees would rush forward, fall back. The Confederates would gallop toward them, where both sides would lamely cross swords. It was like nobody was even really trying to kill anybody else. There were men on foot too, popping off little rifles into the air, then having to stop for 30 seconds to feign reloading. It was a little pathetic, actually. It was very pathetic. It was more pathetic than me even. My dead brain, my lack of appetite, my dreams coming back at night. 19 minutes into the battle, the first Reb dropped, twitched, and died. Then he came back to life to move his hat over his eyes, blocking the sun. There was nothing to be scared of. As the Union retreated, the crowd hollered, a few cried. I had to believe I could change myself. The Confederate cannon fired one last giant smoke ring over my head. Okay. I will read another poem. And again, this one's about, again, going to a location. And it's about the Booth Museum of Western Art, which is just like this crazy experience that I had at that. And then I wrote about it. I don't need to be talking about it. I'm about to read the poem. Okay. The poem is called, I gave the Booth Museum of Western Art 1 star on Google Maps. Okay. I gave the Booth Museum of Western Art 1 star on Google Maps because I overheard the museum guide tell her tour group, all gray, Dolly Madison saved Gilbert Stuart's portrait of George Washington. Bleh. I'll start over. Okay. I gave the Booth Museum of Western Art 1 star on Google Maps because I overheard the museum guide tell her tour group, all gray, Dolly Madison saved Gilbert Stuart's portrait of George Washington from the burning White House, when really it was her 15-year-old slave who broke the frame and slid the painting out. His name was Paul. It was clear to me immediately that the Booth Museum of Western Art was not a place for the truth. It was a place for wannabe cowboys who loved cowboys and wished for a simpler America, and to paint things like Indian chief screams at heavens and Navajo boy kneels. Even for me, who loves fucked up shit, it was a little too fucked up. It was more fucked up than the man who sat down next to us at the diner near the museum that morning and ordered 3 hamburger patties, no bun, topped with chili and raw white onion. Then he squeezed ketchup onto his plate for a full 5 seconds. On my face, the same shocked look I had staring down the sculpture hall at the line of little bronze men with abs and headdresses, at the elementary school split into mountain men and Native Americans all laying on the floor underneath a giant painting of the desert, trading laminated cards that said fish and blankets and bullets. The same shocked look covering my ears in horror at the chanting blaring in the interactive gallery for children in the museum. We played a game of checkers down there. There were no warnings anywhere. Room after room of valiant cowboys, bucking horses, wide clouds, dancing Confederates with their Southern bells, an entire floor of president portraits, each with his own fun fact, and almost every artist named something like Dave, Neil, John, Scott, all still alive and lying. Everything in the museum was too new. Even our relationship was new, or whatever you want to call it when 2 people share a pancake, or when 2 people stand in front of a 15-foot Native American man with his hands sculpted for eternity behind his back, bowing to a wall of 19th century presidents, and neither of them need to say how they feel, the other just knows. And nothing's new. The world slides us a new plate of shit every day, and we scrape it into our open mouths. We don't say out loud to the museum guide, no. 5'7" Dolly Madison did not save the 8-foot painting from the burning White House. No, I don't want to buy the needlepoint Robert E. Lee from the gift shop. No, simple America. No, I don't want to live in Georgia anymore, but I met someone I really like who brings me to museums, holds my hands, and cracks my knuckles. Yes, I want to tell the truth. Yes, I want to fall in love again. The best I can do is 1 star. What was I expecting? What am I allowed to expect? Okay. I have like 4 minutes left, so I will read 2 poems. Okay. This is a short one, and then it's called Like. Like. As I led the man through the crowded restaurant and to his table at the back, he said, "You sure are packing us in here like on slave ships," when he could have said anything else. Packing us in here like daisies into a grocery store bouquet, packed together like the pages of a wet book, like A-listers in a Wes Anderson movie, like hemorrhoid cream in an unopened tube, like pennies in a pickle jar, like 40 to 50 exuberant rural children in an underfunded classroom, like a family of polar bears crowded together on a floating sheet of ice. He could have said even like your ass in those jeans. blood in a syringe, silver compact vehicles on the Beltline at rush hour, styrofoam tight in its cardboard box. Yeah, I was packing him in there, like textured ground beef material into a Taco Bell grilled stuffed burrito, like Amish girls in the back of a white van on the way to Walmart, like bone regrowing inside a plaster cast, like the flames in a fire, like the fingers in my fist. Whenever I read that poem, I always say, like, I like to work in restaurants. I like to be a part of like the real world instead of being kind of like so shut up in academia. Cause like when you're in a restaurant, you get all these like stories and things happening to you, but then like a lot of them are bad. Okay. So I'm just going to read one more poem. And this poem was published recently, and I got a lot of really sweet feedback from people who were like grieving or going through a breakup or something. And it just made me realize, like, sometimes I can be a little bit like I'm hiding my feelings in my work. And but the work I love, and I think the work that we all love, is like stuff where people just like tell you how they really feel. And yeah, I'm just always eternally grateful, like just that that we can write down what happened to us and how we feel about it. I don't know, it's not like deep or anything, but I love to be able to like hear people's poems and read people's poems, and I'm just really grateful to be here and to be able to read and write. So I'll read my last poem. It's called What Am I Afraid Of? What am I afraid of? The silence, the thoughts that come with it, the sinking suspicion that something more is wrong with me than anyone knows, including myself, including the doctor who hooked me up to the EKG machine and said that though my heartbeat was irregular, the irregularity was normal. It was nothing to worry about. The doctor told me there are two kinds of people: unhealthy people who refuse to get help, and healthy people who always think they're dying. Nobody's in between. But I've met so many kinds of people. People who stretch before they get out of bed, people who walk through life unstretched, people who think their body is a house, and people who don't think of their bodies at all. People who peel their carrots, people who don't, people who stand on the roof and let the wind make them cry, people who are afraid to cry. People who step on all the leaves on the sidewalk, people who look straight ahead. There are people who aren't like me. They don't know the names of all the different apples. Once when I was cashiering, a woman said to me, "Wow, you really know your kale." And once at the butcher shop, a man said to his dog, "That's the nice lady who smells like meat." I'm afraid I don't know what kind of person I am. I thought I would get a chance to do my life over in all the ways anyone could think of. Dying would be like changing the channel. I hate that you can't hold on to anything. I was washing an apple, and then I was coring it, and then it was cut. And that was weeks ago now. It was a Honeycrisp, and it lived up to its name. Okay, that's it. Thank you so much for having me. So grateful.
Beautiful. This is truly stunning. Thank you so much, Sasha, for your work. And I'm like, there's so many beautiful lines here, and dying would be like changing the channel, and about the kinds of people that I'm like, my head is like, boof. It's gorgeous. It's beautiful. And your humor is just spot on. And thank you for also bringing in, Fadwa Tuqan and Ross Gay and Gwendolyn Brooks into the room with us, and just like, the giants that we look towards and learn from and always want to uplift. So thanks for all that, and for also calling out the truth. And yeah, so thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to welcome our third reader, Brynn Saito. Brynn Saito's third book of poems, Under a Future Sky, Red Hand Press 2023, was written after her visit to the Gila River in Arizona, the place where her family was imprisoned during the World War II era incarceration of the Japanese American community. With Brandon Shimoda, she co-edited The Gate of Memory, poems by descendants of Nikkei, Wartime Incarceration, which comes out on April 1st from Haymarket Books. Welcome, Brynn, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. It's really wonderful to be here, really nourishing. Lauren and Sasha, I was writing down some lines as you were reading. Some unliftable part of ourselves. We are possible. Taking a chance with my life. They had themselves become their ancestors, all still alive and lying. What am I allowed to expect? Yeah, it just feels, it's just an honor to be here. I'm going to read 3 poems. The last poem is 2 parts or 3 parts, 3 parts. And I wanted to start with a poem by Lina Khalaf Tufaha called Lullaby. And it's a poem that I encountered many, many years ago and sort of stayed with me and kind of rose to my consciousness as I was thinking about today and what to read. So here's Lullaby. We cannot carry you, our arms warm and dry, too late at the shore of what has cradle fallen, what sent a woman who fears the sea, what sent a man who fears the burning skies of his country into the razor-edged waves. We cannot carry you, tiny boat capsized, upturned fish floating in the glass bowl of our screens. We cannot carry you. We sink deeper, beyond the midnight zone. How to measure the trenches of our silence, little one? We want things smaller than we know. A vessel strong enough to lift you into tomorrow. A life jacket or 2. A pair of small shoes pressing into the sand. I think, that phrase, that refrain, that anaphora, whatever the right poetic word is, you would think I teach poetry for a living. That repeated phrase, we cannot carry you, we cannot carry you. I think it stayed with me because I learned when I was young, when my grandparents were being sent to the camps, they were told this kind of famous phrase, you can only take what you can carry. So I'm 4th generation Japanese American and 4th generation Korean American, and my Japanese American family were imprisoned in Gila River, Arizona. Riwa mentioned that. And so this phrase, so I think a lot about in my work, what can we carry, what can't we carry? What is unliftable in us? What can we hold, what can't be held? And how much we want to hold and hold on to and we can't, and the despair in that. And so this next poem is called February 19th, 1942, and that date marks the signing of the Executive Order 9066 that authorized the incarceration of the Nikkei community on the west coasts of Canada, North America, and South America. And a lot of my work, reckons with that history and that inheritance. And also, I think, is trying to think about the connections between my community's story and so many other struggles for justice, to begin with sort of the Japanese American incarceration, but to think about how those forces, those settler colonial forces are at play, are activated in places like Gaza, in the history of the dispossession and displacement and genocide of the Native American community. Gila River, right, was built in southern Arizona. It was one of 2 camps built on Native American reservation land. So when my dad and I went there, we visited for the first time in 2019. And we went there and we were led through the land by the Gila River Indian community. And they called it a prison on top of a prison, right? And so I think a lot of my work is thinking into and feeling into solidarity, and not just solidarity of these awful forces, right, that are at play and alive, but like, what does it mean to have sort of a joyful solidarity or solidarities of kind of love and resilience, and how are those forces also active and alive and healing us and moving us towards repair. I want to be better at, I love that Ross Gay. I love Ross Gay's work. I want to be better at like writing about joy and the sort of histories of joy that shape us as well. So that was a long segue. This is February 19th, 1942, and it's for my grandmother. Moon across the sky in the purple morning, dry earth unfurling. In another California, my grandmother is packing everything she owns into one suitcase, 2 suitcases, the water still in the clay pitcher, water unwasted, only what she can carry. There is no moment in my life in which this is not happening. What is happiness? 2 granddaughters in a summer garden, firstborn, secondborn, and grandmother laughing. There is no moment in which she is not alive and rising, imbuing these hills, this morning sky with shadows. I think I've stopped believing in linear time. I just, it's like everything, everywhere, all at once. My grandmother is always packing that suitcase. Somebody's grandmother is always packing that suitcase. And she's still alive, and I feel like when we come together in moments like this, thank you to RIWA, thank you to the Arab American National Museum. When we gather like this, I feel like our ancestors, they might be here too with us. And, these poets, I know their work from the page, but this is the first time we're together reading, and it just feels like something's like percolating. Feels really special. Okay, this is my final poem. This is Theses on the Philosophy of History. Again, sort of thinking into some of those same themes. The subtitle is Listening to the Presidential Debate While Stuck in Traffic. So this is like multiple presidential debates ago. I wrote this, 8-10 years ago now. Somehow still feels relevant. Still feels timely in a weird way. So I'll close with this and I'll just say thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. 1. Roads clogged with people and vehicles crossing the Golden Gate. Give my rage back to me. I know how to hold it. Ghost fog grows and stretches itself through the bars, and I'm ready for it. On my radio, the white general and the white general yank each other into the deep end good heavens. Don't teach me to hate my language tonight. Don't teach me how to hate my language and its lips tonight. Tongo says capitalism walks on water. I've seen my TV. I believe it. All of the redwoods in the world can't keep this country from wanting to die. The future has arrived, and it's doubled over, and the rest of us are ready for love, though we're burning. 2. Roads clogged with people and vehicles crossing the Golden Gate. My family is Eduardo and Mitsuo and Marilyn and Alma and Samuel and Fumio and the twin who drank himself to death and the auntie who drank herself to death and the Issei and the Nisei and the Sansei with their rock faces and nightmares. Undisguise me, said the stone. Undisguise me, said the stone to the desert light. Undisguise me, said the stone to the river. Lay me down under harsh water flowing under midnight starlight. Take my face off of my face, said the stone. Shake me open. 3. Roads clogged with people and vehicles crossing the Golden Gate. The white general and the white general teach me how to hate my language on the radio tonight. Which nightmare of a framework makes the human count? Which bodies count and which count against? Grandma met Grandpa in those camps. Let me give your rage back to you, said the poem. Stop trying so damn hard, said the poem. Everything that has ever happened to you and your family keeps happening, and the love keeps coming in with its surgery. Get good with yourself, said the poem. Get gone. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Brynn. And I was like, you got to read some more. I love your poetry, and thanks for sharing this poem that unfortunately is still, very relevant today. I want to go back and read it. I just love your work. And give my rage back to me. I know how to hold it. That's like the line that I pulled from that poem for my chapbook. So I'm like, oh my God, it's so real.
Thank you. Yeah, feelings mutual. I love your work as well. Thank you.
Thank you. I was just thinking a lot about what you were saying, and also thank you for bringing Lina Khalaf Tufaha into the room with us as well. She won the 2024 National Book Award for Poetry.
Yeah.
For the first time, Palestinian American won the National Book Award, which is wonderful, for her book, Something About Living. So thanks for, also reading her work. I am going to, introduce our final, last but not least, poet, Andrea Abi-Karam. Andrea Abi-Karam is a trans Swana punk poet performer cyborg. They are the author of Extra Transmission by Kelsey Street Press 2019, Villainy Nightboat by Nightboat Books September 2021, and with Kay Gabrielle, they co-edited We Want It All, an anthology of radical trans poetic, published by Nightboat Books 2020. They are currently writing a poet's novel about crushes. Welcome, Andrea.
Thank you so much for having me, Rewa. And wow, I'm still recovering from everyone's readings. Lauren, Sasha, Brynn, thank you so much for sharing your work. I'm going to start off by reading a little bit of Atal Adnan's work from her book of Cities and Women. I really love the epistolary tradition amongst poets and amongst writers. And there's a few paragraphs I'm just going to kind of skip around and read from that are calling to me tonight. Dear Fawaz, the weather is so hot that it makes me wonder if any thinking can be done on a Greek island in the middle of August. Ideas melting away as quickly as ice cubes in one soft drink. You wait for the night, but then the discos begin blaring and you have to fight your way to sleep. Scapelos is superb, but it takes a good 2 days to get here from Paris. I spent the night in Piraeus in a hotel where the air conditioning had broken down. I dusted off my Greek and chatted with the night clerk of the Hotel Ideal. I heard him answer me in Egyptian that it could all be blamed on the Feast of the Virgin. That's how this Cairo Greek had solved the problem. Simone and I went out to dinner. We found the place nearly empty, with cafes right on the water, the trees already yellowed, a hint of Byzantine gold in the air. I'd love to spend my life in the Piraeus. A small plane flew over the mountains and dropped us off. We waited for 4 hours. Because of some error, the hydrofoil that carried us to Scapelos, the island was bathing in light, a really beautiful island. Hillary and Elena were waiting for us. Elena had just returned from Samos, weary. Hillary has an old red Triumph. She piled us in with our luggage and quickly promised to tell us 1,001 tales as soon as she would have time. Places act on the mind by means of their light, especially the phosphorescence, particular to each location, programs our thoughts. And the world spins within one's head. In the diagonal trajectories of the light bend our thoughts along new angles. Our perception of things changes noticeably. Our interests shift. Our passions change their tone. On this island, human relationships seem to slacken, like knots in a boat's rigging, which would give the impression that they are resting, though they are barely loosened. Time wends its way into our relationships, and like boats traveling away from each other, the interwoven fibers of our preoccupations distend, and all that ends in oblivion. The technology of tourism has shattered this island. It shows in the character of the people. There's brutality in the air, a lot of brutality. Tourism itself is a form of brutality. The 3 or 4 week packaging of pleasure beneath the most ardent of possible suns exasperates lust or hatred, blurring any distinction between them. Proliferating nightclubs organize the violence into kinds of nocturnal marching bands. The hard rock music chews into the brain like a grater. It is a music of death. It revives the dead, as it were. It gives them death's life. From midnight to 5 a.m, in the din, the ritual of the pleasure of dying proceeds. Poetry and war meet so often that the crisis atmosphere that reigns seems almost natural despite its strangeness. I would have liked to push the discussions further, but they would have gone off in so many different directions that we wouldn't have made any progress. Yes, back to my letter, like the one comes back to a book. The sea is flat and of no help. The heat is like a heavy coat. There's too much rot in the air and in the minds. The war gave to the life wish a shade of indecency. Piles of garbage exude a stench and a taste which is sour sweet, unbearable, even when it drives by them with a car. One swallows rot to the point of depression, and any sight of mountain or sea looks like deliverance. I wanted to bring in Atal Adnan's work and just thinking about what are our responsibilities as poets, as writers, as artistic people during this time of genocide in Palestine. And I feel like if anyone has answers, Atal is one of those people. And I'm going to read a little bit from my first book, Extra Transmission, which came out in 2019. So it's kind of old in poetry timelines now. But ever since things began last October, I've really been returning to this work a lot. And I first wrote it. It's a documentary project. It's about the war on terror. My family is from Lebanon. And I became fascinated with the ideas of the signature injury. Like every war has a signature injury based on the type of weapons technology that are being deployed in the war. In the war on terror, signature injury was traumatic brain injuries. So these invisible injuries people would suffer from very extreme memory loss to the point of becoming new people. And so that's kind of the overall arc of Extra Transmission. So I'm going to read a little bit kind of through from the beginning, and Lauren's reading and obsessions about horses made me want to read this section at the end. That's from the perspective of a horse, because while there's no medical therapy for people to regain their memories, horses and other types of animal therapy are used in PTSD recovery. And so that was part of some of the research that I did. So a little bit towards the end, there's going to be a piece from the perspective of a horse. I used to work in a lab with rats for a long time, a memory lab. We were trying to figure out what part of their tiny brains could remember how to navigate space, what told them which way to go, a model for humans, a model for curing Alzheimer's, a model for navigation, a model for humanless navigation, a model for drones. I quit shortly after the lab got funding from the US Department of Defense. Did you know that if you're a combat veteran with PTSD, you can get a nonprofit that is funded by the CIA to give you a dog? I want a dog. Check 1, check 2, check 3. Can you hear me? Check 4, is the room empty? Check 5, can you hear me? Check 6, oh well. Check 7, my story is empty anyway. Check 8, lights off. Check 9, good night. Check 10, next on CNN, a poetry of directness. Kill all the noise bros who move to Brooklyn and tell everyone desperately that the noise they're making is the only thing they believe in. Kill all the bro poets. Actually, you know what? Kill all the bros. Kill all the power dynamics in the room. Kill all the power dynamics in the white room. Kill all the power dynamics in all the rooms. Pull them down by their greasy cables. Get your hands dirty. Kill all the hierarchies of power of who is publishing who and who is fucking who and who they fucked before they got published. Publish who they fucked or don't. Kill the nonprofit board of poets who scheduled the endless summer reading during Dyke March this Saturday. and kill the sociality that makes queers feel excluded and that makes the orgy dangerous for our bodies and that makes you select who to make eye contact with and who to ignore on alternating nights and which beer to schedule on which day and which bar to go to after which reading, and kill the system that was designed to alienate everyone from each other and that caused this desperate sociality to emerge, and kill the system of gendered power that makes it so hard to inhabit every moment in my own skin, to know how to detect each buzz like counting the number of trains that pass at night, and kill the language of avoidance that made it so hard for me to write this. Check 11. Is anybody out there? On the surface of the signature injury, on the surface, circle one option below, mild, moderate, severe. On the assembly line to American nationalism, little clicks along the conveyor belt. Select a PDA from the moving belt. Slide the PDA all the way into the port. It should not hurt. It should feel comfortable. It should feel natural. There may be initial misfirings. You may see scans of the calendar behind the eyes. They'll feel like dreams. You won't miss any appointments. And remember, it's just a prototype. You will not be satisfied. Head-on collision, double vision. At what point did you realize there was something very, very wrong? What you can't see can't hurt you. Do you remember the blast? There are stories of machines that enter bodies, machines that enter armor, pierce the skin, machines that force their way through, machines that force their way through boundaries, through borders, through armored shells, through skin, just a few scratches and bruises, bump on the head, nothing major, right major, yes major, right left major, keep moving, keep driving, keep fighting, worry about the bruises later. There is a blast. There is an impact. There is the wall or the roof or the ground. There is a blast, an impact, a force against you. There is the wall, the roof, the ground, the sharp metal edge. There is a blast. Standing, knees locked, so I don't collapse even if I doze off. I wait for your touch. Like I know how hard it is to feel alone. And when I'm alone in the stable too long, I start to chew on wood. Just like you did the feet of your grandmother's rocking chair when you needed more care, like you needed after the blast. How you need someone to take care of you instead of you trying to take care of the whole country. Until suddenly everyone around you noticed you were struggling to find your words, to find your names, to find your memories. But first, they dropped your rank, failing to follow orders. How could you, such a grave offense in a nation held up by a steel ladder manufactured in China? Obey or get pushed to the edges. It's more vulnerable there, but at least you can see the outside of that moment. They failed you. This failure makes it difficult to trust them. If I have a trainer who wavers, even for a moment, I don't trust he'll be there for me. I need to keep him sharp. Next time he tries to ruffle my mane, I'll rear. I'll box the air to remind him that I could crush his panicked head beneath my heels. He won't pet me for a week after. He remembers the precarity of his life. In this way he can't control. In this way you couldn't possibly control the blast. He remembers looking up at the bottoms of my hooves, and I remember his inconsistencies. You remember waking up, and I remember the first time you came to see me. You pet me like you had never needed your palms to be against something more than my body. And I rocked in, remembering each night I'd spent coughing up splinters. When you touch my hair in the morning light to wake me from standing sleep, to go and walk together, even if it's in a circle over and over, the same grind, that we can be here and feel the static, my mane tangled between your fingers, bristles between the teeth of your port, or how you always have to go and I have to stay. What if one day you could take me with you beyond the gate, beyond this one type of experience we always share together? Tell me, do you sleep standing too? Out there in the desert, seeking safety beneath endless explosions with no cover. I don't think I would make it out there. I don't think I would make it out there like you did, or that part of you did. My instinct is to run and just run fast and far. I know I wouldn't make it that way either, that I would trample across a tripwire, hooves heavy with exhaustion. That would be my total end. And hopefully I wouldn't have to remember that it'd be over so fast. Sometimes I don't know what's worse for you. The fact that you can't remember, or do you not want to? I think you remember meeting me week after week, or at least I hope that you do. People think horses scare easily, always haunted by the way we sleep standing, always ready to escape if we have to. That we are haunted by the possibility of the future, and you are haunted by the possibility of what lives in the past, your own self trapped standing alone in the desert. I get a lot of inspiration from, thank you, Lauren, for your comment in the chat. I get a lot of inspiration from the work of Ana Mendieta, this amazing performance and earth artist who was unfortunately murdered by her husband. And I do a lot of ekphrastic writing in response to her work, and I have a long section of those ekphrastic poems in my second book, Villainy, and I had the chance to see some pieces that I hadn't seen before back in December. And so I have a newer piece that I'll read after her. And if I'm taking too long, Rewa, please let me know. The Featherlight Body, after Ana Mendieta's Ocean Bird Wash-Up. I struggle to find the surface, riptide feather clench, ossuary, open to thin lines, protract interface of water and air. I revisit the earth again, choked up on exhaust, in the soft leather sink of the city. Gray turns to shadow cast, earth edge inflamed. My edges persist against the desiccation drive, by flame, by gun, by chicken fat, slick empire, cast all day, exposed. I dare house my insides, off-center split, left side hypertrophy by beat force, relief, filling. Ocean's edge, master sculpture, crush, churn, tempt evasion. Above ground, my asymmetry renders me recognizable in the sky's mirror, the scratched ever-present lens. Against the rough sand, ribs pierce my skin's surface to architect a wing. Give me urgency through the turbulence. Distort my breath of water as the waves curl, envelopes my skin. I encounter something older and more solid than I, branching out towards shore. I pass through it, push by through water pulse. Ocean, my form tangles with the divisions of tree. My skin opens to the claws of ancient oak, redwood, driftwood. My visage stripped. A snow angel in summer. Wings baked by the sea, smoke disappear me, etch upon the earth, soften my urban outlines. The weight of my form constructed to lie upon blades of grass, curled towards iron ore, reside in smoke, in fog, in dirt, in ash, in gunpowder, in memory. In tract molded by wind, disavowed by sun. My traces travel through heat currents rising, eyelids heavy against the crash. Water's tendrils wrapped around my heart, halt broken heart. Deepest desire, a chance for deep sea to gasp against each crest rises through my water-slick wings. I let the water widen my arms, stretch the volume of my form undulate with wave, film reel vertical click, elongate pubes to ocean-wide seaweed, floor to ceiling, the same exact motion, never repeats, versions accumulate. This next poem, so 2 more poems. This next poem is called Multipoint Perspective, and I gathered my inspiration for this poem after Dion Brand's piece Nomenclature, which came out in 2022, which I encourage everyone to read. And I had kind of been struggling to write new work since the genocide in Palestine began or restarted, and reading Dion's Brand work helped me be able to write again. So I very much thank her for that. Multipoint perspective. Our meetings keep getting live streamed. By streetlight, I love Orgo, a language building skeletal, explaining the difference between Adderall and meth, N to H or N to C to triple H, methylamine, mine. We discovered another common language of variable consequence. I am surprised I am not alone in this knowing. In those moments between spaces, tunnel, freeway, reverberate, sine wave, transverse, accelerate, jaw tilt, open airway wide, splintered vertebra, molten pavement. I wanted to be a part of something bigger, collective differentiation, endless branching, gridded loss, mass public overview, spill over sidewalk, crepitus, freeway, bridge, sinkhole, noble gas, exhale, lying in wait. I search for a syntax, a structure to fold, mechanized chaos into order. In the mountains for a week, I give myself a partial break from the news cycle, listen to the poets and the birds staccato, Air Force aerial practice echoes, the thud of rain on gently glittering sand at the gay beach. We approach it for a moment, ocean licking toes. The dread of the unknown. No one talks about how gray the lifeless body is, the tight packing of our internal insulation. Protect signals from node to node. When our fingers slide apart, sensations have not yet become words and dissipate. I am shocked by the density of self, congealed in surface, maximizing folds way down the palms of my hands. With all memory, lust, candor, one remains. In the evening of us, mutual light keeps our lungs filled. Time slows the moment before impact, each lysozyme shipped out to infiltrate protein walls. We do not adapt to the live stream, and it does not stop. How hard we push our VO2 max to the limit of what our hearts can take. In the after, we emphasize dissection, the careful splaying of skin and muscle and vessel and nerve, a slice towards knowing the errors of transpiration, inroads to the sources of the body's history, the vessel highway severed branch by branch, connection points lost to the sharp metal edge, shrapnel sculpts skin in the pattern of empire, assigning trash of the pieces that don't fit. Empiric forces emphasize desiccation, the passage of time marked by the repetition of holidays, alongside bomb tallies and mass graves undercounted and obscured. All right, this is my last poem. I'm going to close with an epistolary poem to Gabrielle Seville. And she, right before Villainy came out, I sent her an advance copy. And about a year later, she wrote me this amazing kind of response poem in response to having read Villainy. And it was so, and I really admire Gabrielle Seville's work. And it was like such a beautiful email to receive that I never was able to respond to it. And eventually she published that email as a poem in Poem a Day. And I think it was about 6 months ago. And I finally got up the nerve to respond and responded in the form of an epistolary poem to Gabrielle. And it just last month, or just the end of, just in February, got published in Poem a Day. Dear Gabrielle, I must have read your letter 100 times, drafted my response ascending the washed out pink of the Williamsburg Bridge. You know the one. Repetitive travel by foot, running, training for the Brooklyn Half Marathon. How momentum forces the body forwards in sub-30 weather, all flushed cheeks and icicle muscle fiber. I saw a beating heart last week, fully open chest cavity. I watched the body mechanics surgeons excise and replace a very important doorway between chambers. It was beating so fast and I was worried for it, the threshold between parts, left ventricle, aorta, boroughs, Brooklyn, Manhattan, the J train late at night from West 4th Street, the dotted line between night and day, the event horizon of a city pulsing at the threshold of air and land, the body on ice temporarily, waiting for the definitive shock awake, a hand's gentle massage on your source power. I think of the repetition of the oral tradition, your pedagogic emphasis and visceral commitment to rearrange space with more possibility. Let the axis wobble at the reverberation of your voice drench. My legs are tense from tabulating the miles a train could take me on. The queer revelry, urban nodes of resistance, all those grungy house beats shock my heartbeat back into contagious rhythm. Does the movement stop when the beat pauses? It's been 8 years and I still feel the shock of it buried deep in our soft marrow, hip joints locked from loss. I find relief in the timbre of your voice, widening possibility, opening the cages at Zendaya prison, M's breath along my skin, green and purple and red and black heart sent between friends, May the trains bring our hearts close together again soon. XO, AAK.
Thank you, Andrea. That was great. That was wonderful. I just I don't know. It's just weird how it's not weird, but it's wonderful, I guess, how we're all in conversation with each other, because I am literally reading Italian's
Oh my God.
Cities and Women. I'm going back to it. I read it years ago, and now I'm back to this wonderful collection. And just what you said about, what are our responsibilities during a time of genocide, and how Itel does that. She's been doing that in all her work, just really talking about the interconnectedness of our struggles, and just like covering all of our experiences and suffering under like the same forces, and she's been doing that for decades and decades. So thank you for also like inviting Itel into the room, and Anna Mentiera, and also Gabrielle Civil. And it's just all, we're not like, we have 4 readers, but we have all of these wonderful writers to also bring into the room with us. So thanks for that. And we're about at time, but I do want to take like a few minutes. I don't think we have any questions in the chat. I just want to take a few minutes now that everybody's here, just to kind of talk about what Brynn Saito mentioned about how we move towards repair, and just kind of delving into love and resilience. And I'm, just trying to grapple with that, and trying to also bring that into my life, and just like thinking about how we find sustenance and hope during this time. Like, I don't know, I'd love to hear your thoughts around that. Like, I have my email signature I keep going back to, it's a quote by Gwendolyn Brooks, which is, part of her poem, where she says, "We are each other's harvest, we are each other's business, we are each other's magnitude and bond." And that, like, that's kind of like what really grounds me, and it's like my North Star to always remember that. So I'm just like curious to hear from all of you, just really quickly, how you stay grounded and hopeful during these awful times, both internally, nationally, and like globally. And I want to say, like, as an artist and as a person, but like, I don't know if we can even separate the two. So same.
Well, I don't know how grounded I am, or how I'm. Personally, I meditate a lot, but also I think I was working on this anthology with Brandon Shimoda. I think you mentioned, and I realized how sustaining it was to just work on something with other people, and just be involved in like organizing and in community, and it could be these small ways, it could be these big ways, but gosh, I think that it keeps me sane. Like, just having that collaboration and having that work to do together, working on something and chipping away at something. I think without that, I'd be even more ungrounded than I am. So I guess just, sort of working with people towards has helped me a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, I think going off of that, I mean, shared acts of storytelling is just always something that brings me a lot of like comfort. I was in my job as a journalist, I was interviewing someone recently from Lebanon, and they were saying that they think a lot about how memory is a thing we sort of project onto the past, but memory is a thing that we're creating right now, and it's something we have to think about as an unfolding like present condition. And that's why, like, during times of genocide, storytelling becomes so important, because it's a way of creating memory and keeping records. And so, I don't know, I think maybe like as writers, it's easy for us to think of like, oh, storytelling is a way that I find sustenance or hope, but it really, all the more right now, I think in this moment, telling stories with others or just listening to the stories of others it's like one of my only ways to access, I think, hope, and in a way that feels sustainable.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I mean, I'll just say, like, I don't really feel that grounded or hopeful right now either, for what it's worth.
Yeah.
But I feel really lucky to be teaching right now, and to have be able to read my students' work and be able to make time for them, and like write recommendation letters and meet up outside of class, and like I think we're just saying, like, these connections with other people always, you know, like, are the thing that helps a little bit, like doing things that are maybe small for you but are big for somebody else, you know?
Yeah.
I've been reading a ton, and I feel like being able to have like writing that inspires me gives me so much like joy, and also like makes me feel motivated to keep at it. And other like personal things for me, like I have a wonderful girlfriend, and for me, like trying to stay as connected as possible to my body, which is so hard. But I run a lot. I just did the Atlanta Marathon.
Nice.
And yeah, being able to like feel alive through like an extreme exertion is restorative.
I love that. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for all these thoughts. And it's just, you know, I feel like it's a connection to the body, and just connection to each other is really what it kind of boils down to, and our different ways of kind of having access to that. And now we know that, you know, Sasha and Andrea are in the same place. Like, please talk to each other. And Brynn and Lauren, I just love these, you know, beautiful coincidences or synchronicities or whatever you want to call them. But and just to keep being in conversation with each other. And yeah, it's a wild time, but thank you for your work, and thank you for your voices and everything that you're doing. And thanks for being here tonight. I think we're, you know, I think we're gonna wrap it up. And just want to say thanks to everybody who tuned in, and to please also, you know, if you want to donate to PCRF and Palestine Legal, we have the QR codes and the links also in the chat. And I wish everybody a good night, and hope we can stay in touch. So thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.